emotional intelligence and your emotional brain. Now we're going to talk about this amazing mechanism that you've got and how it can do such great things for you, but once in a while it gets you in some trouble, and what we can do about that. The emotional brain. Phineas Gage, September 13th, 1848. He's a railroad worker, actually a foreman, and well liked by the people that work with him. A person with high emotional intelligence, great at getting the group of people to work together, highly self-motivated, self-disciplined, can put down arguments very quickly. And on this day, he's working with the partner, and they're blasting through bedrock in Vermont to extend the railroad. As they blast through the bedrock, they drill a hole, and then Phineas with this partner, Phineas would put powder, blasting powder into this hole, shaft basically. Pour some blasting powder in there. The partner would then put sand in on top of the blasting powder. Then Phineas would take a rod about 3 feet 7 inches long, 3 feet 7 and about 1.5 inches in diameter. And he would put this big rod into the hole and hammer on it to pack down the powder. Then they'd repeat the process. He'd put more blasting powder, a little more sand, rod, pack it down. So on this day, 4-ish in the afternoon, Phineas is working. He puts the blasting powder in. Then something distracts Phineas. He looks away, only for a few moments. Then he looks back and he puts the rod in the hole and hits it. No sand. His partner looked away at the same instant. No sand. The contact creates a spark, and the rod comes flying out of the hole. The powder ignites, the rod comes flying out of the hole, and the rod lands about 100 feet away behind Phineas. In between the hole and 100 feet away was one thing. And you see a little clue up here. Phineas Gage's head. Phineas Gage, 4:30 p.m. that day, the rod went right through him, landed 100 feet away. 4:30 p.m. that day, Phineas Gage signs himself out of work, and his coworkers help him get home. About 5 p.m., Dr. Harlow comes to his house, and on the front porch is asking Phineas about what happened. At one point in the notes, and Dr. Harlow took very extensive notes. At one point, Dr. Harlow writes, in trying to understand this, I put one finger through here and one finger through there, and they touched. Wow, Phineas Gage lived 11 years after this incident, but his coworkers, his friends, and his family said this about him. Phineas Gage was no longer Gage. He was a completely changed person. Dr. Harlow wrote later on that he tended towards animal propensities. Later in his life, he spent more time with animals than with people. See, after this event happened, Phineas tries to go back to work, and they could never employ him again in that role because his emotions owned him. When he started to feel angry, it was like a switch flipped, and he just felt unbelievably angry. Just lost it. Freaked out, if you will. When he felt sad, completely overwhelmed him. Like the bottom of that iceberg flowing down the river, right? Just completely overwhelmed him, and he just went with it. Nothing to stop it, no buffer. When he felt happy, same thing, completely overwhelmed him, like a switch flipped. Bottom of the iceberg just took him, and he went wherever the bottom of the iceberg went. So they studied this and tried to figure out what happened with Phineas Gage. What happened to him? And by the way, many of you watching this, you probably have never had this happen to you, right? But at the same time, I ask your friends and family if once in a while an emotion owns you, and the answer just might be yes, right? I know it happens to me. It happens to the best of us, right? What happened to Phineas? What happened is that rod separated the connection between his frontal lobe and his limbic system, the cortex and the limbic system. So you could look at this brain, touch this part of your head, the outer section of your head is where rational thinking and IQ and conscious thought takes place. The deeper parts, if you put your hand behind your head and reach in, push in there, that's where the emotional center, the limbic center of your brain is, and where emotions start. It's also the non-conscious part of your brain. So top of the iceberg in brain size is much larger than the bottom of the iceberg. However, this still influences everything. Everything. A couple things to understand about this. See, these two areas do communicate, and that's the source of EQ. An emotion is felt here, sends a signal out there. This part of the brain can counter at the top of your brain, the outer part, the IQ, the logic, the rationale part, can counter that emotion. But most of us haven't done it enough in certain areas. We have this 45 minutes out, 5 minutes back, this horse pattern. 45 minutes out, 5 minutes back, 45 minutes out, 5 minutes back. When I get that 45-mile-an-hour driving person in front of me on the road, and we'll get into that and what to do about it. But let me tell you one quick story that I think will help understand this very, very well. A couple of years ago, I'm maybe 8, 9 years old. My older brother and I, well, we were camping with the family. My older brother and I decided we needed to go find a bear. Well, we happened to be camping in the Blue Ridge Mountains, West Virginia. My brother and I get up before the sun gets up. We sneak out of the tent so our parents don't know, and we start heading off into the woods in search of a bear. We head off into the woods and we're getting a little further in. I think I was probably 8, maybe 7, somewhere around there. Get a little further into the woods, and our senses are very heightened at this point. Where's the bear? Where's the bear? Then all of a sudden, we hear a rumble. Just like the horse. Bang! We both turn, sprint, full, all-out sprint as fast as we can back towards the campground. My older brother's about 1.5 years older than me. He's picking up speed, and I'm losing ground on him, and I'm, help, wait a minute, run as fast as I can. I can still picture the running experience to this day. By the way, part of how your brain works. Strong emotion creates a very, very accessible memory. That sound triggered something that we all have that's at the core of this limbic system called the amygdala. The amygdala has an amazing function. It's almost like an alarm command post, an alarm central. It gets inputs, data in, and it says, is this worth creating an alarm about? And if so, where do I send the signal to? Right? Somebody breaks into your house. Something's out of the ordinary. Boop, boop, boop. Send the alarm. The amygdala is famous. We've all heard this concept of fight or flight. Well, the amygdala is able to do something unbelievable. It's able to hijack. It's called the amygdala hijack. It's able to hijack the rest of your brain. And more than that, it can take control of your body. It can say, get ready to run, right? Fight or flight. The amygdala takes this conscious brain, which at any given moment for most people is processing several thousand, 5,000, 6,000 complex calculations at any given moment. And the amygdala boils that down to a question with 2 possible answers. Do I eat it, or does it eat me? Famous question Daniel Goleman talks about in the book Emotional Intelligence. Do I eat it, or does it eat me? See, my brother and I thought a bear was coming to chase him. By the way, my brother and I get back to the campground and we find out that rumble was actually a jet plane flying overhead. But when we heard that first roar, our senses were heightened. We were looking for a bear. So that little rumble, and we said, bear, get out. Do I eat it, or does it eat me? Well, I'm running. And the amygdala says, shut off everything else in the brain, which shut off even anything saying, could that be something other than a bear? So we ran. It said, I don't need so much oxygen up here. I don't need to be thinking about a lot of stuff. Bear, run. Send the oxygen to the muscles. Let them run. Stop the stomach from digesting food, because I don't need that fatigue. I need all the energy I can get straight to my muscles, not working to digest food that I can't use for energy right now. I need to either eat the bear or make sure the bear doesn't eat me. Amazing, amazing way the brain works. Now there's one other part to that amygdala hijack, and it's called flooding. It's a little bit below the hijack, but it's a process where, as we headed into the woods, because we were looking for a bear, we started creating a heightened sense of awareness. The amygdala starts sending little droplets of norepinephrine into the brain to say, get ready, heighten your senses around bear, what I'm looking for that could be a potential alarm. Now when that happens to us in the real world, flooding, enough of that, worried about something almost hijacks us. 5, 6, 8, 10 things like that happen in a day. Then we get home. somebody, child, loved one, says something that just puts us over the edge. It's because we're already flooded. We're already so close to a threshold of a hijack that one little comment can become that hijack. Powerful, powerful thing to understand. Now, one of the most crazy thoughts about this whole process is this. It's very rare today that you're in the woods looking for bears that might eat you, or you might have to eat them. Very rare for you today, I would imagine. However, the amygdala is still command central and asking, do I eat it or does it eat me? And someone says something to you, and you sometimes will say, uh-oh, alarm, do I eat it or does it eat me? And it trips that thing. It shuts down all the conscious thought. And later on we say, why did I say that? Why did I do that? Why was I going crazy about somebody driving slowly on the highway? Why did I? And we cut off all of our rational thought. And later on we start thinking, I should have done this. I should have said that. Why didn't I? Because the logical, the rational thought is back on now. Phineas Gage, he was no longer Gage.